Good evening and welcome to our regularly scheduled December 14th Matthews Board of Commissioners meeting. Remind everyone that due to the governor's COVID-19 orders, this meeting of the Matthews Board of Commissioners will be conducted remotely using the Zoom virtual meeting platform. The Town of Matthews is committed to transparency and robust public participation during these challenging times. Also, remind everyone that the mayor and commissioners will vote on each item by roll call vote, meaning each member will be polled to individually state their vote for the record, and they will also raise their hand to visually indicate their vote. I'd like to start with some introductions. Tonight we have our town attorney, Charles Buckley, with us, our planning director, Jay Camp, Commissioner John Urban, Commissioner Ken McCool, Commissioner Jeff Miller, Commissioner Dave Bland, Commissioner Larry Whitley, Mayor Pro Tem Renee Garner, Assistant Town Manager Becky Hawk, our Town Clerk Lori Canapino, Town Manager Hazen Blodgett, our Information Coordinator Maureen Keith, Police Chief Clark Pennington, and we also have from the Mecklenburg County Commissioners, District 6 Representative Susan Rodriguez McDowell is here with us today. We'll start with the invocation. Commissioner Bland, do you agree to do that tonight?
Eve. Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed on the people of the town of Matthews. Help us to appreciate that all you have given us and give us the strength and the will to help those who are less fortunate. Help us to work together to make and strengthen our town, our state, and our country. Help make us strong. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. There's our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to move on to agenda item number 4, where we're going to discuss local issues with Mecklenburg County District 6 Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell. And I just want to start by saying, Susan, thank you for your excellent leadership during these difficult times, and in particular in helping the town of Matthews be successful when receiving a pretty substantial amount of CARES Act funding. So we're very appreciative of that. And I'd like to just open the floor to you and maybe let you just speak to us about what's going on at the county level.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Higdon. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you guys today. And I do want to compliment you all on the great job that you have done in dispersing those CARES Act funds. That wasn't easy, I'm sure, to get everything categorized correctly and get the money dispersed in time. And I know it was a lot. And anyways, I think you guys did a great job from what I've seen and heard. So thank you for that. And I do think it's really cool to be part of Mecklenburg County because you don't have to wait for those funds to go through the state first. So we were able to get those funds coming straight through the county. So I think that was a little added bonus being part of Mecklenburg County. But as far as, an update from the county, I know you guys are working on your legislative agenda. We work on ours through committees. And so we're still working on our legislative agenda. But I do see some similar themes in our legislative agenda and yours. Like our guiding principles are similar in that we support legislation that grants counties greater flexibility. And I know you guys have similar language in yours. We support legislation that provides funding to counties. We oppose legislation that removes authority from counties. And we oppose legislation that creates unfunded mandates or directly or indirectly shifts costs to counties. So you guys have some similar things in your agenda, and so I know that we are very much aligned on those things. So as far as an update, I'm not quite sure what you guys were wanting to discuss, but there's just so many hot topics right now. It's a lot, and so I don't really know exactly what direction you guys wanted to go in. Whether it's CMS, homeless, there's a lot of talk in the community about a lot of topics. And so COVID, of course, today we are at 491 deaths and 51,604 laboratory confirmed cases in the county. So, I mean, we're skyrocketing. So, these are all things that I know you guys probably are already familiar with. So I'd love to hear more about what you guys, had on your minds that you wanted to talk about.
All right, let me open the floor up to any of the elected officials or staff if you have any questions you'd like to bring forth to Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell. Okay, Hazen?
Here, I'll start. I've mentioned this to Commissioner McDowell once before, but it was really like super high level and it was almost in passing. But I think one of the interesting dynamics about the city and the county is they're so large that the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County will do things and the towns, and this may have been done 30 or 40 years ago, who knows how long ago, but let me give you a quick example. It's a unified risk management department that includes Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, and CMS. And Becky and I reached out to them to kind of push on that, like, would you like to have another, would you like to have somebody else in it? And they said no. And the city person I thought was very straight up. She said, we're not giving the service that our folks deserve now. We don't want to take anybody else on. And it sounded genuine, but I think there is this tendency, particularly when the towns were smaller, the city and county do something. And I think we have to be careful about equity because we all pay county tax. So when the county does something with the city, it's like it may not be equitable. So having said that, and I hope I don't take up too much of everybody's time, Parks and Recreation is a good example. I think way back when the county got out of the patrol business and the city got out of the Parks and Recreation business and they traded.
Right.
And the only problem I see with that is the city with focused on Parks and Recreation. Now that's a county department, but the city has all these legacy Parks and Recreation rec centers as an example.
Right.
Any long-term plan, there's going to be some kind of upgrading of those facilities. And of the 6 towns, all our stuff emerges later, probably 20 years later, and then we've taken all those responsibilities. I do think in the new plan, one of the focuses is on equity in underserved areas. And for me, I get that. Like kids in Matthews can come to this library and the darn thing is full when it's fully operational. So I get where the level, it's not necessarily a level playing ground. I don't think it has to be, but I do think there's got to be some attention paid to make sure Matthews or the 6 towns get a fair piece of that Parks and Recreation pie. And for us, greenways to me, that's a way to keep us buying into the county or supporting the county. Because, this may not be as tactful a way to say as I could, but many residents in Matthews don't use, let's say, the social services network as maybe other parts of town. And I think I understand that. But I think to keep our citizens supportive, any kind of carrots that can be provided, and I think Greenways is a good example of something can keep us engaged.
Okay, interesting.
So, Hazen, did you have a question in that?
Well, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for talking so long too. Please keep in mind when these plans are developed that the towns need their fair share of the Parks and Recreation dollars.
Okay, I hear that. And so are you kind of saying that maybe there's some projects coming up that you would really like the county to be a part of, and you're looking for involvement, that you would like to be specific about that, or did you just mean in general?
To me, a good example would be the extension of the 4 Mile Creek Greenway underneath South Trade Street, headed towards Providence Road. We have so many residents over there, and we're doing some stuff up. We're connecting some of the neighbors on the other side of 74, but that would be a good way to link in, I don't know, 1,000 houses probably back in there.
Yeah, I remember we've talked about this before. We were looking at maps, and this was before COVID hit, and we were looking at just kind of how that would get you all the way over to Providence Road, and that was a super interesting idea. I think I hear what you're saying, though. In general, what you're saying is, you're looking for somebody to be a voice on the county commission and with Parks and Rec and with other things that we're doing to make sure that the towns are getting their fair share of assets or upcoming projects, just that kind of thing. That's what I'm hearing? Is that right?
It is.
That's Parks and Rec, but in other ways too.
I don't want to speak for the board, but I do get where government services aren't equally distributed, because I do think many of the residents in Matthews are very fortunate, and I don't think it should be kind of dollar for dollar. We pay X dollars in taxes. We need X, Y dollars in services. I just would say, please don't forget about the suburbs, even though they appear affluent, and they are affluent. There's citizens that would really value some of these services that the county provides, like greenways.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's that's sort of the lens that I try to look through all the time, but I hear what you're saying. I think it's definitely a valid thing for you to raise, and for us always to keep that in the front of our minds, how we're being equitable to the entire county. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I have a question. Is the county getting involved at all on how the vaccines will be distributed?
Oh, gosh, that is a great question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think that is, from my understanding, it's going to Atrium in our area, but I don't know if the public health director has a voice in how it's being distributed, especially now at the beginning. But that's probably something we'll be hearing about tomorrow. We have a board meeting tomorrow night. And if they don't raise that, I'll definitely raise that as a question to find out. But I'm pretty sure they'll probably touch on that. That's a great question.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Bland.
This may sound like a ridiculous thing to say, but I was just curious. It sort of seems to me that, at least from my way back when the towns were itty bitty and Charlotte was big, still a little bit that way, but it used to be, I always got the feeling that because the county commission always met downtown in the center of the city of Charlotte, that I think sort of the town sort of got lost out, and from mine sometimes. Have there ever been county commission meetings where they've come out and held the county commission meetings out in the towns, in town hall here in Matthews, or in like one of the other towns? Do you know?
Oh gosh, not to my knowledge. I know we've done like different town hall type things spread out around the whole county, and had held meetings like at the Sportsplex. I know I've held a town hall at your government center, in Matthews in the past. But as far as like an actual county commission meeting, I don't think so.
Just seemed to me it'd be a good way for the county commission to stay in touch with different towns, and have those citizens out of that part of the community be able to take part, maybe a little bit more. Just a thought.
Okay, that's interesting. So, like, you would like us to take over your seats at the dais?
You can have mine right now.
Okay. No one's using it right now, are they?
In it.
Yeah.
You can have all of ours for the next few months, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, though. I like the idea of all the constituents, out in the towns and in the ETJ areas being able to have a little more access to coming to those meetings. But we don't have a very large audience in person usually. Most people are watching through live stream, even when we are in the government center. We have the Twitter and live stream, and I think there's a YouTube channel. I don't actually know all of the ways that we're streamed, but I know we are. So, but that's an interesting concept. I'll kick that one back to our clerks and everybody and see if there's interest there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Commissioner Miller. You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you, Susan, for joining us today. I appreciate your partnership. You and I have met on a number of occasions through other entities.
Yeah.
And Hazen, thank you for bringing up the Park and Rec topic. Susan, if you didn't take notes on that, that's the 4 Mile Creek Extension Greenway. It's it's called 4 Mile Creek, but the Greenway from one 4 Mile Creek to the other one is 8 miles apart. We wanna gain it and then look at new options to rename it, perhaps. And the other one was the Irvins Creek Connector. Is that right, everybody? Irvins Creek, and that's over by Idlewild, from Independence towards Idlewild, and connecting to one of the Carolina Thread trails that we're already.
We're beginning work on that too, Commissioner.
Yeah, I was just on a Zoom meeting all about that recently. I Zoom into these things, which it's kind of a great thing about having to be on Zoom is I get to attend way more things. I've done the Silver Line task force that you guys had. I was able to Zoom in on some of those, and also the Irvins Creek that meeting. And anyways, so it is great to be able to drop in so easily on these things. But so you're saying those are two projects that you're most interested in?
The Greenway is becoming, or has become, very, very popular, and maybe some people do laps at the YMCA and go around in circles, but walking amongst nature has more benefits and more variety, and everybody is connecting through the Greenway now, and I think it is popular, and it connects neighborhoods and schools and parks.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys are listening to all this talk that we're hearing about this new big 2040. Is it 2040? The new mobility plan, and that is exactly what you're saying. Using greenways and trails to complement transportation. It's a great way to get around between neighborhoods and things like that. So I think what you're talking about is spot on. Is very current. Is very current to be talking about these things and to be planning ahead, because this is really important for our future. So I appreciate that.
And the other comment is a number of teams have been forced to cancel their tournaments at the Sportsplex at Matthews. With sports, professional sports, amateur sports starting to roll back out, I would just like to raise our hand on addressing that to see how can that be controlled safely as the vaccine rolls out, so that we can invite more tourism into the town of Matthews.
Okay.
Commissioner Urban.
Yeah, Susan, I'd like to thank you for coming out this evening. You put yourself on the spot. So in typical fashion, although the pandemic's really put schools to the side burner, I really feel strongly that students need to be in class. That's a different discussion. However, every time that we approach CMS, and we've got a long track record here in Matthews with CMS, they continually point the finger at y'all. That it's the county commissioners, it's other powers to be that hold the purse strings in terms of the conversation about schools and things of that nature. How do we begin to tie in a much larger dialogue with the 6 smaller communities Charlotte itself, CMS, and the county commissioners to really get down to brass tacks, because I think the only time we get involved is everything is reactive in Matthews. Something happens that we have to react to, as opposed to proactively looking at situations. And I would think one case in point is going to be, in light of the COVID pandemic, CMS is going to need to seriously upgrade ventilation systems, build new schools, classroom sizes have to be reduced, things like that. And so it really changed that dynamic. But the first thing they're going to do is say, well, show us the money. And then the question is how they allocate that money. So I guess in light of all this, maybe this is fortuitous, this pandemic hit us. It may open up a better opportunity to work together for a more proactive approach to what schools need to be doing, how to actively address the needs of each community, the facilities themselves, the students themselves. I just frankly, and Jeff can speak to this more than anybody else, is, again, I think everything is really reactive and not proactive. And we've just been sort of out of the loop in terms of CMS.
Okay. So you feel like you're out of the loop, meaning talking about how we're going to deal with the fallout from the pandemic, as far as with schools and.
Well, I think new schools, what we're going to do with the existing schools. Obviously, Matthews Elementary is a very old school from that aspect of it, but it goes much further than that. I've been to a lot of the CMS meetings where, they're looking for us as the town to do something for them. And I'm sitting here going, wait a second, I as the taxpayer, you're serving us in the community. Why is it always about you? Why is it always about you? And of course, the first thing is they'll deflect and say, well, that's the county commissioners. They hold all the purse strings and all. We really can't do anything. So I'm here to say, what on behalf of CMS in some respects, what do we need to be doing to be talking to you, talking to them about, having this conversation at a bigger level.
I see people raising their hands to respond to you.
Go ahead, Susan, if you have a response to Commissioner Urban, go ahead.
I think my response would be to tread lightly, first of all, because we did just have a meeting with CMS, a 3-hour meeting last week, talking about, how we're going to reach our goals for bringing up, scores for children who are falling behind. But there's way more that we could talk about as far as underfunded schools. I mean, our schools are underfunded. And as far as the county commission being able to fill that gap, the county commission is already $500 to $700 million, spending on education. And so at the state level is where the funding is really not coming through. And so we're having to fill gaps that, where do you think that money is coming from? Where do you think it's coming from? Right.
Well, in the conversations
with
CMS, though, they point to you. They don't point to state level. If CMS told us as the community in Matthews, go to the state, I think the mayor would be right with me. We'd be up at the state level hounding them. But all the conversations I had with CMS was, no, you need to be talking to the county commissioner. So maybe we haven't had that really good sense of conversation about where the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Well, the county commission, our main role is supposed to be to fund school buildings. Mm-hmm. And so what we end up doing is filling all the gaps that are besides the school buildings, right? So the school buildings are funded usually through bonds, and, we have, I can't remember how many years if it's every 3, I can't remember if it's every 5 years. It just escapes me right now how often the bonds are. But, the county commission is filling the gap of where the state, frankly, has underfunded schools for so long. Schools are woefully underfunded. Okay. And so, the county commission, we have a lot of priorities. And so CMS is one of many. But it is the number one thing to the community, right? When we do our surveys, education is number one to the community. And so that's why we are allocating, and the number escapes me right now because I'm just on so many different topics, but it's between $500 and $700 million, right? Per year. okay, of funding that is over and above school buildings. So, you know, it's just mind-boggling. So what I would really like to do is have all of us march up to Raleigh and see if we can get some state funding to, you know, for them to pick up the slack on where they're failing to fund schools. And so that's kind of, you know, how I see it as a commissioner. I think, you know, we're going to be getting ready to be in our budget talks and starting in January. And, you know, it's not going to be pretty, right? I mean, this is a horrible time, but we have to find a way to deal with it. So, but I really like the idea of us coming together and talking about it, working together, find a solution. But I really do think part of our solution needs to come from Raleigh.
Yeah, Susan, I think this is something that we're undoubtedly going to have future conversations about. And Commissioner Urban mentioned our beloved Matthews Elementary, which is both overcrowded and old. You know, the infrastructure is very old. It's our oldest school in town, and really needs some help, some upgrading for sure.
Right.
We would ultimately probably like to see that school rebuilt in place and upgraded to be a little more modern. I believe it's about 50 years old. Isn't that correct, Hazen?
Sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner, do you have a comment?
My comment is to kind of interject between Commissioner Urban and Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell. That meeting last week on Thursday, it's available on Facebook and you can watch it, and it is simultaneously really boring and really interesting. It gets into the nuances of educational funding in North Carolina, and CMS and the county just sat and asked questions for hours about what's possible for them to do, where money comes from, who dictates what happens with that money. And I learned a lot. And so maybe possibly the woman who made the presentation, I don't, you know, is it possible to get her to come to the town and sort of explain that in maybe in less than 3 hours? So that we can grasp what it means for, you know, what CMS can ask for as far as, I'm always surprised their limitations on projecting growth for schools. And we always think, well, if they could build a school that holds X number of students as we project Matthews getting built out, then that would solve the problem and it makes total sense. Well, they can't do that. And that has to do with our developers and how we approve plans, and those, until those buildings are filled, CMS doesn't see any of that coming from into their finances. You know, so it's coming from the state in a really complex way. But if you can take the time to listen to the questions between CMS and the county and drink some coffee while you do it, you know, you'll be enlightened about how difficult it is for them to figure out that funding. But maybe, Susan, that's something that we could get in Matthews, is either somebody explaining the slideshow or the Cliff Notes version of that. And that would help, I'm sure, all of the towns to stop feeling like we're fighting and grasping for straws and better understand, okay, who do we go to talk to about these issues?
I think that's
at
great.
another meeting when that took place. Who was the presenter? Who was this person you're speaking of?
I think she was from the School of Government. Kathy, I can't remember the last
School
name.
of Government. Okay.
Yeah, School of Government, I believe. They came and actually, I think I might have her name right here. Let's see.
Facebook, you can find.
Kara Melanzi.
Okay.
So yeah, this is
Check that out.
this is some light reading, y'all. You could it's like, whoo, you know, this is pages out of the book that she's written, and yeah, it's quite dense. But I hear what you're saying, and I think the bottom line is we really do. I think it would be great for us to sort of come together and get on the same page and figure out kind of the plan, you know, the plan forward. What what is it going to look like going forward? You know, I mean, land is disappearing, right? Land acquisition is another priority, a competing priority for funds, you know, for building schools, for building parks, for all of these things. And having the funds to do that, I mean, you know, these are all great things for us to talk about together. So I really do appreciate you bringing those up. I think it would be a great idea.
Commissioner McCool.
Just to kind of piggyback off it, not to beat a dead horse, but you know, as a local elected official, you hear two things: you hear about roads and you hear about schools, kind of just over and over and over again. So,
Right.
you know, maybe we have that meeting with that lady, and maybe we have a 5:30 with you to discuss how we can, you know, how we can go knock down the doors in Raleigh and get some more funding so we can you know, better work on schools in Matthews. I think that's a huge priority. And as someone who recently graduated from Matthews schools, I have some perspective that I think we could all talk about in maybe a special meeting moving forward.
That's sweet. We have had pretty phenomenal growth here over the last decade. Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. We have a hit, and going back to Commissioner Urban's comments, you know, better communication perhaps from CMS. Well, didn't we form the MEAC, the Municipal Education Advisory Committee, a couple years ago? And has it been a year since we've had a meeting?
Well, yeah, I think since definitely hasn't been any since COVID. And before that, I think maybe it had been a few months. I know you and I both sit on that. And
that's right. And I think that Charles Jeter has dropped the ball, or people are ignoring it, or they're a little bit too busy with the urgency. And I understand the urgency. However, if everyone else is doing Zoom, why is MEAC not doing Zoom to keep us abreast? Because I'm, you know, again, we have the Matthews Committee on Education, and they're asking me, and we're trying to make plans for daycare. We're trying to make plans for, you know, is it virtual? Is it in person? Is it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday? And boy, oh boy, it sure does change every week. But MEAC was formed to assist in the communication between the towns and the bureaucracy of CMS. And in my opinion, it somewhat failed. And that's the argument against why many people feel that CMS has grown a bit too large. I'll just speak for myself. It's almost parallel with the government closest to the people does the best job of managing local government versus the state mandating. In this case, the state and CMS are the big brother, and it's stepping on a lot of toes. And I look at the minutes and I listen to Sean Strain talk about how they're not closing schools because of COVID. They're closing because they don't have enough bus drivers or they don't have enough teachers, honestly. And then I thought, well, if they're flexible and they think outside the box, if most of the parents drive their children to school anyway, couldn't they say, if you're willing to have in-person learning and you're willing to drive your children to school, would that be a possibility? That's just a small example, other than the fact that MEAC hasn't had a meeting for a year or more.
Yeah, those are great questions. You know, I think it's a great point that MEAC hasn't met, and we could do a Zoom meeting. I think that would be an excellent suggestion. I actually just was talking to our chairman. I think you might have a new representative from the county. It won't be me this time. It's going to be Laura Meyer. And so I was just talking with him about that tonight. And so, but I definitely will talk to her about, you know, the concerns that you all have. And also I would attend the meetings for sure. even though I'm not assigned to the committee, just because I'm interested and I want to make sure that I'm representing Matthews and Mint Hill and Pineville. So I would still, be a I don't know if you call it ex officio member or something, and would show up. So, but having said that, all of your points, I mean, I understand. I can't really speak for CMS. I just can't. I can't talk about, why do they not have, if they don't have transportation, why don't they have the parents drive? I can't really.
I know that. But Mr. Jeter spends a lot of time sending us an email once a week with his opinions. Maybe he could just write an agenda.
Maybe you should write to him and ask him for that. That might be a good.
Other questions or comments for Susan?
Mayor, back in the day, we used to go to Raleigh, and all the cities, towns in the city would get together with a legislative delegation. We'd have a meal. County may have joined us. I do not remember, but it does. I wonder if that time has come to have and include the county, because this big mobility thing. I know the mayor of Charlotte has started to reach out to everybody, and that's a countywide deal. Here, talking about schools, sounds like all of us rowing in the same direction kind of discussion may be really worth.
Yeah, I was actually speaking with our legislative person, Starla Tanner, and she was talking about trying to figure out how to do it virtually and have all of the county plus all of the Mecklenburg reps, plus all of the towns, because we did do that, I believe, in 2019. We had like a big breakfast, and I don't know if you guys who was there at the time, but yeah, she's trying to figure out how to do that now and this spring and pull something like that together. And so stay tuned for that. I know it's in the works somehow. I don't know if they'll have like breakout sessions or, how they would do it, because it would be a pretty large group of folks.
I think we're all looking forward to 2021, and we can have a lot more, hopefully, certainly by summer, in-person meetings, which I think are a lot more effective generally, especially between, different bodies, between the county and cities, et cetera.
Yeah.
It'd be good to meet in person at least occasionally. So that's good.
Yeah.
And one other comment I have on the mobility stuff is from people I'm talking to, I think already there's a little bit of confusion about what that entails and what specifically would be done for XYZ municipality. A lot of people think that that's 100% like roads and buses, for instance, and does not include greenways and microtransit and all the other things that are being discussed. So it's going to take a lot of education to get everybody to understand what's being discussed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. They'll have to do a major campaign to spread the word on that. Definitely. It's complex.
Sure. Well, I've asked a few times if there's any other comments, and I guess we'll let you go. I think you probably go to enough meetings per week, don't you, Susan?
Yeah, there's quite a large number.
Yeah. But we really do appreciate you coming to speak to us. And you and I spoke, even back when I got elected mayor, and we said we wanted to have you come to our meetings, and we just haven't had many in person, but at least we're starting to do this virtually. Hopefully, we'd like to see you 2 or 3 times a year, and we can meet in person hopefully next time.
Yeah, definitely.
Or
and
certainly in 2021 sometime.
Yeah, definitely. And I know the chairman is talking about doing his going out to all of the mayors and speaking with them again. So maybe that'll be virtual this time. I'm not sure, but we'll definitely keep in touch. And you guys, my email is always open, my phone line. So please, reach out anytime. I'm here to serve you guys. So I really appreciate it. I've taken a lot of notes here, and I hope I'll be back again soon.
Thank you so much, Susan. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Have a good night and happy holidays if we don't speak again.
Thank you so much. Good night, y'all.
All right. So we're going to continue to have other elected leaders that represent the Matthews area to come speak to us. And again, hopefully we can start doing this in person. Lori, do we know who we have next in the cycle?
I am actually still working on the 2021 calendar right now.
Okay. So we will continue to get other of our state legislators and possibly even, senators and congressmen that represent us. I think it's good to see those guys and gals at least occasionally. We'll move on to sorry, I have some lighting issues today. Let's go on to agenda item. What are we on? Number 5, the update on COVID-19. I believe, Hazen, you're going to give that tonight?
Yes, sir. And the chief has given me very good notes, but I'm not going to go over them all. I do want to mention one of the things that Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell mentioned was the CARE Acts. Becky has been working very hard to disperse our $300,000. And Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, we're the only town that asked for that. Everybody else just folded into the county, which is the easy thing to do, but we did not choose to do that way. And really, as a result of Becky's leadership and EDAC, we are in the process of distributing that money this week. Some of it may have gone out last week, but Becky's working super hard, and it's really something to be proud of. To, as I go through these things, to see this business that's a town business, I know, this is nice. Now it's a maximum of $10,000. It could keep the doors open. It's not making anybody profitable, but it's keeping the doors open. So Becky gets a lot of kudos for all her hard work on that.
Thank you, Becky.
There you go. Good. So the second thing is about y'all mentioned about the distribution of the vaccines. And so the hospitals are getting an allotment. I'm not sure how much their allotment is, but we have been focused on what the county health department's going to get. And we had a meeting today about that. And the first big picture priority is the frontline workers, the workers at the hospital, their highest risk. Makes sense. And then also the folks in long-term care, those residents and people that are providing that avenue for those folks is going to be going to Walgreens and CVS. And so what we've been talking about with the county health department is the vaccines they're going to get, and they think they're going to start getting them next week. And it's going to go to one of the primary groups it's going to go to is EMTs. So that's our firefighters, because our firefighters are both EMTs and firefighters, and we got 64 of them. So we're just about to start this process of getting the word out to our folks, educate them about the vaccine, have them fill out some forms, and in the next couple of weeks, hope to get them started on the vaccines. We have kind of picked on a little bit like police as well. Obviously police are not like nurses or like even EMTs, but we got 10% vacancy in police and we got 10% people out in police. We cannot afford to lose many more people. So we keep hammering on the county, or we brought up in a number of conversations, don't forget about police, don't forget about police. So hopefully some of this is federally dictated, some of it's state dictated, but the county health department really is doing a good job. I would say the county manager is doing a great job in a very stressful situation. I guess the things I'd like to add about, there is a new order in place. We are continuing to refine that with the help of Charlotte CMPD, also ALE. One of the discrepancies we just learned about is bars and restaurants have to close at 10 o'clock. However, we just got clarification. They have to stop serving beer and wine or any alcohol at 9. That's when let's say the bar stops, and then people at their places can drink their beer, drink their wine before they have to leave at 10 o'clock. But that was something apparently ALE wasn't getting straight. They did do some warnings in town over the weekend. Things have gotten stricter, about 6 people at a table. kind of this 10 o'clock close time. What else? Face coverings, except for when you're actively eating. Case counts are going up as of today, this morning. Well, this afternoon, we had 51,009 cases, 485 deaths. That's up over 1,000 since Friday. It's just, they do think it's the Thanksgiving Day surge. And I think I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to ask?
I've got a question. Hazen, can you speak to what Matthews is doing as far as enforcement?
So the chief is on the call. Well, I can give you an example. I'm not going to name the business, but the chief himself went into the business, kind of warned them about, please follow the rules. They said they would do it. This business has been warned. I do know when we went by there, the police went by there on Friday and Saturday, they had closed down at 10 o'clock. So we continue to use, I would say, voluntary compliance, and I think we're getting decent compliance. Chief, how would you characterize our compliance?
Let me just clarify, the reason I ask is Hazen, and I'm sure the chief is aware that we're getting somewhat pressure. I know Mayor Pro Tem Garner was on a call this afternoon with the health, Mandy Cohen, Dr. Cohen, and we're getting pressure to the towns to be more of an enforcement mechanism. And I know that I'll just let the chief respond to that.
Okay. First off, good evening. I agree with you, Mayor, that the towns should also be leading, but I will be honest with you, we have not been receiving a significant number of complaints. And when we do, all police chiefs in the area have taken the same perspective, education first. Let's educate the business. Let's try to get voluntary compliance. If we do not, then we take additional steps as necessary. So we have, I guess, monthly meetings with every chief, including all the small towns, to include CMPD, the sheriff. We talk about this every time a new executive order comes out. I do think we're doing pretty good here in the town. I think that we went out and proactively printed flyers that our officers were doing proactive COVID-19 checks of businesses, where we were going in, and if we were seeing anything that was not in compliance, we were immediately correcting and educating, and then following up. And what we were seeing is that we weren't seeing a repeat of those violations. So if we continue, or if we start to get a significant number of violation calls, then we will obviously go at it as an education first, and then enforcement as necessary.
Great. I for the record, think you're doing a fantastic job, Chief, you and your staff. Who had a question or comment? Commissioner McCool.
Hazen, I saw earlier this morning they said Atrium was going to be getting COVID vaccine. Do we know if Novant's going to get it, and when in Matthews? I guess is my.
It's like coming shortly.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
Tomorrow Novant is what my wife told me.
Awesome.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Just to respond and explain what I heard on the call this afternoon. So, and this is what Hazen said too, is that 85,000 doses are going to North Carolina hospitals by the end of this week. But those doses are for people who directly interact with COVID patients. So it's ICU and emergency room staff. And then next week will be EMTs and EMS. And then the week after that, congregational living, but CVS and Walgreens will do the congregational living, followed by the following week, doses to adults with 2 or more chronic conditions, which can include police and fire, but does not necessarily include them. They have to have chronic conditions. And then after that, the frontline jobs of police, fire, teachers, ongoing. So what she said was the hospitals that will comply with what the state health department requires, they have to sign on to that. And then they have to also say that they'll comply with anything the health department says in the future. So when they sign on, they're agreeing to whatever requirements are in the future. And so as long as those, like the major hospitals, I believe would be the ones that would be willing to go ahead and sign on to that.
I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Garner for participating in that call. I was getting at an eye doctor appointment this afternoon, but she took some really good notes, and I think that was a good meeting. Commissioner Whitley, did you have a question or comment?
I got a comment. We are holding our third COVID testing site this coming Thursday at Mount Moriah. Same time from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. You don't have to get out of your car. It is free. Atrium Health has partnered going forward each month until we can get 70% of the country vaccinated. We'll be holding a site on the third Thursday in each month going forward. So for those of you who want to get tested again, this coming Thursday from 8 a.m. to 2:30, we had over 230 people come through last time that was tested. And it's just amazed me that how fast they can set up and run you through. And I saw a lot of you come through, but Chief, it's a good opportunity for you also, if they're working, just ride in the car and get in line and go through. And I don't think it'll hold them up. Take about 15, 20 minutes, but town staff and you too, you're open. If you hadn't had one, it's good to know you can get a result back within 24 to 48, 72 hours. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I've participated in that a couple times. Commissioner Whitley, very, very well run, and it does go by pretty quickly. You get in and out. That's good. Any other questions or comments? I'd just like to remind the community to please, comply with the mask wearing and distancing, etc. We don't intend to, as the Chief said, to being out there cracking the whip. We're really relying on folks to look out for one another and do the right thing. And if we do see blatant abuses, then that's when we're going to ask the police. They have more important things to work on than to checking to see if everybody's got a mask on, etc. But for those areas where we do see blatant abuse, we're certainly going to, Chief will get involved as we receive complaints. So just want to thank the community. I go out, out and about quite a bit, and I see quite a bit of compliance. So we're thankful for that. Anything else on this topic? All right, great. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Are there any items to be added to the agenda?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Hazen.
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. No, sir.
Hazen just frozen there for a second, or was I frozen?
Did y'all hear the other board members hear me?
Do we have any public comment?
Okay.
No, we don't.
Everybody here,
Mr. Mayor.
Hazen, nothing to be added. Do we have any public? I'm sorry, Lori?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, recess the regular meeting for public hearings on an application to amend the Unified Development Ordinance and Land Use Map of the Town of Matthews. So I will entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner McCool. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Urban. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
And Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. We'll move on to agenda item 8A, zoning application 2020-720. To change the existing conditions in that certain B1 SCD district located in the Sycamore Common Shopping Center and being tax parcel 193-521-06 and further designated as 2115 Matthews Township Parkway to allow for the construction of a 3,000 square foot enclosed addition with a 1,500 square foot equipment storage area to the existing Lowe's building. Before we do that, I'd like to ask Jay Camp, our planning director, to introduce the planning board members in attendance.
All right. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here, Planning Board, I believe everyone's in attendance. We have our chair, Mike Foster, Jonathan Clayton, Tom Dorsey, Jim Johnson, Carrie Lamson, Jana Reeve, Mike Rowan, and Natasha Edwards.
Great. I'd like to thank the planning board again for all your hard work. We'll move on to Darren Hallman.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so this is a change in conditions or change to the existing site plan for Lowe's. Jay, if you could go to the next page. This site is located at the corner of 74 and 51 in the Sycamore Commons Shopping Center. Currently is zoned B1 SCD, and it is also located in the Highway NC 51 overlay. Next slide. The current site or the current zoning requirements are back from 2004. In 2004, Lowe's did a garden expansion. It was about 17,000 square feet that they added to the facility. During that 2004 rezoning, the board at the time did have to increase the total build out or allowable build out for the Sycamore Commons Shopping Center. That was increased to 637,355 square feet. Next slide. This is the current view from the right of way. This is from the Independence on-ramp coming from 51 if you were heading back up into Charlotte. And next slide. This current view from the property where the addition will be going. This is over by the lumber entrance at Lowe's. Then we have the current 2004 rezoning plan. Next slide. There were elevations attached to this rezoning. Next slide, please. So as stated, the addition is over on the side. This is over by the lumber entrance. Jay, if you go to the next slide, we've got an enlargement of the site plan. So there'll be a 3,000 square foot addition to the actual building, and then there'll also be a smaller 500 square foot cage section that'll be placed behind that. Then go to the next slide. The conditions that we'll be looking for is we'll be looking to carry forward the Sycamore or the conditional notes from the Sycamore Commons rezoning. And then the board will also need to increase the maximum build out square footage for Sycamore Commons to allow for this. Next slide. This change in conditions is it is supported by the Matthews Land Use Plan for the 74 area or 74 Independence Boulevard area. Next slide. We did have one comment from another department. Fire did mention or make a note that between the curb and the building, there would need to be a minimum of or a minimum width of 25 feet. There could be no parking or storage in that area, and that would need to be maintained for fire access. Planning did note that we would want to see the Sycamore Commons zoning conditions carry forward. The site plan that was submitted was part of the construction documents for the site. We would like to see that the applicant turn in a conceptual rezoning plan. And then we would need to see, or we would ask that the Sycamore Commons build out area be increased. And then Jay, if I could share the screen real quick. I do have a note there saying that we didn't have elevations at the time. However, I did get those from after the agenda went out. So for the tool rental area, this would be the front of the building. And then over on the side where they would be removing some parking and adjusting the drive aisle, this would be the cage storage area in the back. That concludes the staff report for the Lowe's. The applicant is also here if there's any questions for them.
Does anybody at the town board have any questions or comments for Darren? Commissioner Whitley.
Darren, you noticed in your comment that the fire department need 25 feet turnaround, but on the diagram we're showing 20. Is it 20 or 25?
Or it's 20 feet.
Okay.
The 20 feet is the minimum width. On the current site plan, they were showing 20 and a half feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Seeing, are there any questions from the planning board?
Darren, I have one question for you. Between the building and the outside cage, all of the rental equipment going to be housed in those two areas and nothing outside of that?
From what was indicated on the site plan is everything would be inside of that cage. If the applicant would like to make a comment about any storage outside of that, I'll let them address that.
Sure, go ahead. We have the applicant, Travis Spicer. I'm not sure who's going to speak. Travis Spicer, Todd Simmons.
Yes, this is Travis with Lowe's, so I'll speak to that. So let me make sure I understand your question, Mr. Foster. So you want to make sure that everything's housed inside the building, is that correct?
Right, either inside the building or the outdoor cage.
Yeah, so the intent of the cage is to house equipment, and then naturally we've got some inside. They do typically like to have a few lifts outside along the wall, but it sounds to me like that's not allowed. So we'll just make that a condition on the plan.
Well, actually, I'm not even saying that. It's just
Okay.
a question at this point. We recently went through some expansion of tool rental area with Home Depot across the street from you, and there was a lot of back and forth about where the larger items like cherry pickers, things like that, were going to be housed. And it seemed like, I'm not saying that we were misled at any time, but it seemed like the story changed from time to time on outdoor locations for that equipment. So I think we learned a lot from that. We just want to make sure that we, when it's all said and done, know where your equipment's going to be.
Yeah, so again, this is a relatively new initiative for Lowe's, so we're still trying to figure some of this out ourselves. We got a few opening in the Charlotte market. I think, as far as the cherry pickers and stuff, they would like to have a few of those along that wall so that they can plug them in and charge them, but I understand we've got to keep fire access. So it may be that we work with Darren on the conceptual zoning plan, show some of these locations, identify if and what would be outside the building, and then get your sign off on that so that it's documented.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. If there's any plans, even from time to time, to place anything outside, it would just be important for us to know where you plan on putting it.
Okay, we can definitely work on that and show you something.
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. What would this be, a true length fence, black with slats that would make it mostly opaque, or what type of a cage are we describing? Please.
So I think if you go back to the elevation, I think we were showing tube steel ornamental fencing. Probably for security purposes, we would probably put a secure mesh behind that. So that's pretty opaque whenever you put the secure mesh behind the ornamental tube steel.
And if you have any parking for advertising purposes of lifts, would you still have a 20.5 foot fire lane?
Yeah, I think that from what I hear, we've got to maintain 20 foot. If you go back to the site plan, the pinch point was on the corner.
Okay.
And we had some additional room on the side. So it would have to be beyond, it would have to be beyond that point there. And then where it widens out, it probably, more right through there, but along the building wall.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments for the applicant or for Darren?
Mayor, there is one other note that I want to make. The elevations for the Lowe's site, it did show a sign on the side of the building. I just wanted to make a mention that the signage won't be approved with the elevations. That's something that they would need to apply for separately.
Thank you. All right. We have any other comments? Have a lot of people on the call, so if you have a comment or question, just speak up. Not hearing anyone or seeing anyone, so we'll move on. Lori, can you confirm that we haven't had any public hearing comments as of this meeting?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. The public will still have 24 hours to submit comments by email to matthews@matthewsnc.gov or by phone at 704-708-1222. So if there's nothing further on this, thank you, Darren. Thank you, the folks from Lowe's, and we'll reconvene our regular meeting.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner McCool. Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we now stand back in our regular meeting. We'll go on to agenda item 10, planning and development business. Let's start by receiving a report from Planning Board Chairman Mike Foster.
Mike, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you very much. All right. Quickly again, good evening, Mr. Mayor and commissioners and town staff. I have the planning board report for our November 24th, 2020 meeting. For town board action, we have two items tonight. First item is rezoning application 2020-717, Dolores James Dusanenko Living Trust, Buvermo Investments, 9832 Idlewild Road, Senior Apartments, R15 to RICD. Members of the planning board were updated on recent conversations between the applicant and certain board of commissioners members. Planning board unanimously recommended the application be approved with a condition that the applicant continue to work with staff and council to agree on an aesthetically pleasing solution for the roof line design. So that seems to be the one open issue. The request was found to be consistent with the Matthews land use plan. The town acknowledges that a trend toward housing developments marketed towards seniors. The town encourages such communities as development opportunities along and adjacent to this corridor. The request was found to be reasonable and that senior independent living residential uses are appropriate for this area and the remainder of the Idlewild Road corridor. Item number 2 is zoning application 2020-719, Home Depot deck text amendment for outdoor storage in B1 SCD. The planning board reviewed the text amendment and the request and unanimously recommended approval. The recommendation was conditional on the following: that no more than 3 trailers are on the property at one time, that they are for the distribution of agricultural, garden, and landscaping supplies materials only, The trailers are not to be used as point of sale centers, and they would not be located in any area abutting a public street. The zoning text amendment was found to be consistent with the Matthews land use plan, as it supports the economic viability of the existing businesses in the retail center. The request was found to be reasonable, as it provides a benefit for the surrounding community by increasing the selection of retail available year-round. Two other items for information only. Youth Voice, Planning Board, along with planning staff, reviewed the two vacant Youth Voice positions and discussed the programs and the benefits of the program. Members agreed to proceed with advertising the two open positions, targeting high schools and maybe more specifically guidance counselors. We plan to surface candidates, interview these candidates, and then move forward to fill the two open positions. The December meeting, we discussed that. The members of the planning board discussed the data options for the December meeting and agreed to leave the meeting at its initially scheduled time of December 22nd, assuming there was a planning issue to discuss at that time. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mike, for your great report. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Garner, you have a question?
The point of sale portion of that, I have a question about what led you to make that stipulation, and I guess a little background information about that.
Well, we just didn't feel that the trailers, or let's say the back end of the trailer, would be an appropriate place to actually sell materials. They can be sold either in the main building or in the garden shop, the outdoor area, but the trailer should be used only for distribution of those goods.
And I guess my question, or why it piqued my interest, is because now so many people are using square point of sale sort of tablets to carry around. I think that that's going to happen more and more, where if you go like to Target and they pull people out of line to expedite the process, somebody has a little contraption and can ring you up standing in the aisle. I wonder what that will do to making that stipulation now will do to their retail flow in the future.
We didn't actually discuss the flow. Actually, of course, representatives from Home Depot were with us on the call. They expressed no concerns about the statement that we made about not using it for point of sale. Personally, I think it could create a problem if we had a large quantity, maybe even a few customers out there at those trailers, which are going to be outside, basically immediately adjacent to the parking lot, and what type of situation that may cause with traffic flow, both in people flow and car flow.
Commissioner McCool?
Do we know if Lowe's, is their point of sale by there, or do you have to go back into the building to pay for?
Their point of sale is within their garden shop.
Okay,
Their trailers are actually in more of a built-in slot area.
That's correct. And you have to show a receipt when you pick up.
Okay. Is there some sort of stipulation in why they have it that says that they can't be out there with their tablets? Again, I'm trying to create equity between the two hardware.
Well, there hasn't been a stipulation in the past that I'm aware of. However, this decision that applies to Home Depot also would apply directly to Lowe's, because they're in the same zoning group. So anything that's going to apply to one will apply to the other.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And I totally agree with your effort and fairness. We want to treat both of those companies the same way.
Well, let me point out to everybody that this is not a site-specific text amendment. It'll apply to any in a B1 SC
location.
So you can't phrase this dealing with Home Depot and Lowe's only. It's going to be in a B1 SCD district, period.
Right. And in reality, there may or may not be anybody else who would be involved. But Mr. Buckley's point, obviously, if anybody else would try to take over any building in the town that use it for this purpose, it would immediately apply.
So I guess my question then is, if Harris Teeter, are they in B1 STD? Because they will ring you up curbside, and as a point, what's the equivalent of point of sale? Would that be the same thing?
No, we're talking about agricultural products.
Outdoor sales.
Would it be outdoor sales?
Yes, to Mayor Pro Turner's point,
You froze, John.
are there any unintended consequences, Jay? Let me try that again. To Mayor Pro Tem Garner's point, Jay Camp, are there any unintended consequences where this would prohibit somebody that might want to sell with a square or tablet selling agricultural product? Are there other areas this might affect that are currently doing business in that manner? And I don't know of any off the top of my head.
So Darren's been working on this case. I mean, I believe the way the text is written, the trailer has to be associated with the primary business. So unless you had a subcontractor selling materials at a different point of sale system, that could be an issue if Home Depot contracted with someone else to sell the straw, which I don't think would occur. But other than that, I think that's a fair point about the square swipe point of sale has become so common. Darren, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Can we not just, when we get to that zoning or that text amendment case, talk about maybe amending the word that a fixed POS system is not permissible, but a handheld mobile unit is permissible? And that way they're not lugging out a cash register or setting up a stand or anything out there. But if you allow for a portable mobile handheld device, that might be justified to Renee's point, solves the problem from a text amendment standpoint.
Good idea.
Because we're here to discuss the text amendment and the text. We can modify it as we need to.
True, absolutely. We're going to consider it next if there's no other questions or comments from Mr. Foster. We good?
No, and I think that's probably a viable option. I mean, obviously, well, not obviously, but it certainly in reality is going to be more of a seasonal issue anyway. But the text could be altered because this is our recommendation. This is not actually in the text amendment at this point.
That's going to be my point, that when you get to the text amendment, it needs to be specifically stated in the text what you're adopting, not conditions. I understand the recommendation from the planning board, but when it comes to the board adopting this text amendment, there needs to be a written out text amendment specifically to what you need to be adopting.
Understood.
Okay.
All right. That being said, and I'm getting some notices that my internet connection's a little unstable. If I drop totally off, Mayor Pro Tem Garner, he may have to take over, but see if I can hold steady here for a minute. So we're at item 10.1, zoning application 2020-717. We're going to do this one first. Idlewild Senior Living to change the zoning classification from R15 to RICD on that certain property designated at 9832 Idlewild Road and further designated as tax parcel 193-051-18 to accommodate a senior living facility in the RI zoning district. Rob Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the board. As the mayor mentioned, this is application for rezoning 2020-17. We received on Friday a revised site plan, and I just wanted to, I'm not going to go through my my memo, but I'm just going to summarize a little bit about what at the time this memo was written, staff recommended deferral because we were expecting elevations and some revisions that we had not received yet, but we have received those. And the revisions on the site plan are two notes They added a commitment to pay for funding of pedestrian crosswalk on Idlewild. And then also the applicant presented committed to 10 out of the 12 listed amenities in the independent living text amendment. Additionally, on the site plan, they added a pocket park along the Idlewild Road frontage and a potential future shared access connection point to adjacent to Cedar Grove Baptist Church, which is this southern portion of the site plan. The applicant is here and has a presentation, if the board so desires, to see that.
Rob, is staff still recommending that this be deferred?
After review, staff is comfortable with the changes are minor, and there's nothing new that we haven't heard of or haven't discussed. They just have put them on the plan. So staff is comfortable with moving forward if the board so desires.
Commissioner Urban?
When did we officially get the elevations? I know they were sending me information, but when did planning department officially receive the elevations and notice of these changes?
Friday at just before noon.
I don't know where anybody wants to deliberate this or not, but frankly, I'm I'm tired of stuff coming in late in the game. I appreciate Colin Brown, his people, the effort the architect's making or whatever, but Jay Camp and I have discussed this ad infinitum for a while about materials coming in late in the game. And I'm afraid if we don't defer this, we're sending a message to other rezoning petitioners to just drop it in our laps whenever they want. And we've had some as of late as 5 o'clock on a Monday. So I don't know when this stops, but this is just one commissioner's opinion that we're letting the inmates run the asylum at this stage in the game.
Is that a motion, Commissioner Urban?
Puts a lot of pressure on staff to review things.
Absolutely, because now Rob is making a determination, on a few days' notice, and we really haven't had a time to sort of vet it from that aspect of it. That's just my opinion.
Would you like to make a motion, Commissioner Urban?
I'd like to hear from other board members.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
I don't see the new elevations. I see the site plan on the town website, but I don't see elevations, and am I missing them?
Mayor Pro Tem, no, you have not. We have not had a chance to post them to the website yet.
So at this point, our choice is to defer, accept, or deny. Is that true? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Commissioner McCool, do you have a comment?
I want to agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Urban. I mean, we've not even really seen it from our perspective. So how are we going to make a well-informed decision? This definitely needs to be deferred.
The applicant does have a short presentation with the elevations if you all would like to receive that and comment this evening, or we can forward the information to you after tonight's meeting.
Commissioner Urban.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we defer 7/17 until the next date. And I know Charlie's probably looking at the date.
January 11th, 2021.
Okay. Have a motion by Commissioner Urban to defer to our January 11th meeting. Do you have a second?
Second.
Commissioner McCool. Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban.
You have Larry trying to ask a question.
Yeah, before we made that motion, would it be in harm for us to let the petitioner go ahead and show what he's got, and then we still can make the motion if at least see what he's got?
You're more than welcome to make file a second motion if you'd like.
I'm not making a motion. I just want, he's here, and if Jay said he's got it, I like to look at it.
I would too, but I feel played. Okay. I mean, that's the bottom line, is not getting the information in a timely fashion. I read the planning board notes about some things. I do have some questions to the petitioner, but at this stage in the game, it's not fair. It just isn't fair. You all work hard. You all have jobs. And then now we are here tonight to have elevations put in front of us. And I'm not going to knee-jerk react to it. I'm sorry. And I know Colin very well. But I treat everybody equally when it comes to this kind of thing.
Will it be any harm in letting him short, and then we can still, if that's where you feel afterwards, you can still do that. But at least we can see what he's got. He's here, and time is of essence.
What's the pleasure of the board?
View the presentation.
Mayor, you have a motion and a second on the table.
What I was going to say, the manager is correct. You have a motion and second on the table.
Commissioner Urban, would you like to withdraw your motion to allow the applicant to give a brief presentation?
Well, if that's the will of the board, I mean, someone can make a substitute motion saying, I'd like to hear the presentation.
Commissioner Miller.
I'll make a substitute motion that we hear the presentation and then vote. And I have a point for discussion after I maybe get a second.
I'll second it.
And we have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from Commissioner Whitley. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban?
No.
Commissioner Whitley?
Now, are we saying to Johns or to Jeff? The second.
Mine.
To
Jeff. Hear the Jeff.
Yes, for Jeff.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem
Yes.
Garner? Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner McCool?
No.
And I vote no as well, and I'm going to need some help on how that vote went.
You didn't get Dave Bland.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Bland?
That would be a no.
Okay, so I believe that fails to pass 4-3. Is that correct?
That's what I'm.
That's correct.
All right. So now we'll go back to the original motion and take a roll call vote. Is that correct, Robert's Rules of Order, Charlie?
Any discussion?
Well, you made the motion, but then you discussion still.
Well, the motion's been made, so you can now discuss.
Okay. Is there any discussion on Commissioner
No,
Urban?
that's not true.
It is true. We had a substitute motion that didn't pass. So now we're back to the original motion that's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
That's what I'm saying.
Renee?
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Does it matter if the applicant does or does not want a deferral? Is that,
No, doesn't. We could defer him. We could deny him tonight.
Motion speaks for itself.
Any further discussion before I call for the vote? Commissioner Miller?
Thank you. Mr. Will mentioned that the presentation was received by the town around noon on Friday. My discussion would be, could that not have been forwarded to the board, BCC'd to the board on Friday? Most of us, I can't say most, but whatever. A lot of us review the agenda over the weekend. If we would have been provided the elevations on Friday before close of business, we would have reviewed it on Saturday or Sunday or today and been a little more educated on a decision. That's all.
Commissioner Urban?
Yeah, but Jeff, you're missing one point. Staff takes the information in and either amends their report or holds to their report, and they provide us guidance on that information. So Rob at 5 o'clock gets the information. When is he going to disseminate that information to get it to the board? I mean, obviously he's saying there were minor changes, but where there were significant changes? And I think that's the step we're missing. I get you. Yes, I can review over the weekend, but staff didn't have time to deliberate on the material.
Okay.
Commissioner Whitley.
That's not what I heard. Rob said there was two minor things they added to it. He did get it, and I'm with Jeff. They did get it at 12 o'clock on Friday evening. You know, I mean, we're living in difficult times, and I hear what Jeff is saying. I mean, John is saying. I concur, you know, but at the same time, from Friday at 12 to today, tonight, we could have, if we had it, but if he's, you know, the motion passed that we don't want to look at it, I still would like to see he's here. But anyway, that's the will of the board, and I'll follow that.
All right, I've turned my video off. My internet's very unstable. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so is there any further discussion? We've got a motion and a second to defer this to January 11th. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
No.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. But I believe that was 5-2 with Commissioners Whitley and Garner voting no. Is that correct? I think so. Okay, so that item will be deferred to our first meeting in January. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, 10.2, zoning application 2020-719 text amendment to change standard number 6 for outdoor sales of goods in conjunction with a permanent business in the B1 SCD district. Darren Allman again will give us update on this one.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to reiterate, this text amendment does just affect the shopping center district. It is limited to hardware or home improvement store type land uses. The locations of the trailer on site are limited to the side and rear of the buildings. After the planning board meeting, there was also a condition or a note added to the text amendment that any storage of the trailers could not be in a yard abutting the right of way. Also part of the planning board meeting, there is now a limitation of 3 trailers on, or a maximum of 3 trailers on site. And then the note about the payment transactions must be done in the store was also added. And then Jay, if you could scroll down to the 3rd page. So I included 2 different pages in the staff memo. So the first pages were changes from the planning board meeting to tonight's meeting that were made to the text. And then the last page is the final draft of the text amendment that we do have on file right now. So everything that's red underlined, these will be as the text is proposed now, this is what will be added, including just a note from some of the discussion earlier, the note about the payment transactions must be done inside the store and not at the trailers. The applicant does have a presentation that they requested to give. If the commissioners like, I can pull that up now for them.
Darren, before you go on, and I can see this, but just for the record and so everybody can hear it, can you read this text amendment to us, the change?
Yeah, so what's being added is the different zoning districts are being singled out. So we have the HUC, the B1, the B3, BD, BH, I1, I2, MUD, Transit Service, and the ENT districts. There will be no change to those zoning districts. In the B1 CD districts, the occasional or intermittent sale of goods from a semi-trailer without a cab or from a temporary greenhouse or tent for a short-term sale shall not exceed 120 days during the calendar year. That was to carry over from the previous text so that there's no unintentional consequences of adding this in. Notwithstanding the foregoing, ancillary only to a permanent retail hardware or improvement store land use, the sale of agricultural, garden, and landscaping supplies and materials from a semi-trailer without a cab shall be permitted year-round, subject to the following limitations. Must be located to the side or rear of a building, may not be located within any required yard abutting a public street. Payment transactions must be conducted at the store register, not at the semi-trailer. And no more than 3 semi-trailers without a cab may be used on single property. Any semi-truck, temporary greenhouse, or tent used as part of the outdoor sales shall not be located within any required front setback, any required parking, any driveway, or any internal vehicle or pedestrian circulation areas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm really getting bad internet here.
Darren, I'm a little confused. You said that this is the final text changes. They're looking for year-round sales. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this. This says shall not exceed 120 days.
Right. So that 120 days, that was to carry back over. So currently, the 120 days limitation would apply to the sale of any semi-truck trailer without a cab, greenhouse, or a tent. The notwithstanding, or everything after the notwithstanding the foregoing section, that would apply to that.
Okay.
Exclude the 120 days from the semi-trailers.
I see how you have it worded now. Okay, I understand.
I don't.
Yeah, legalese.
There's not any other questions. As I did mention, the applicant did have a short presentation that they'd like to give. Jay, if you could give control over to me.
That's fine.
Lori, is Laura good? Oh, okay, there you are. I see you now.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good evening.
Yes.
Again, my name is Laura Good. I'm with Parker Poe, and I represent Home Depot in their application for the text change to change the limitations on the sale of goods from semi-truck trailers in the B1 SCD district under very narrow circumstances. Currently, again, as a background, the UDO already allows for this type of sale from semi-truck trailers in the B1 SCD district, but it is only limited to 120 days. And so because Home Depot currently sells pine straw and hay from these types of trailers, and this is demanded from the town of Matthews residents on a year-round basis, we are asking for a change in a very limited circumstance to allow for year-round sale of specific types of good from semi-truck trailers. If you could go to the next slide. So this slide shows the changes that we've made from the public hearing that was back on November 9th, from some questions and concerns that we heard at the public hearing, as well as to incorporate the recommendations we received from the unanimous recommendation of approval from the planning board. As you can see here, just to clarify some language, I know some folks were questioning how it says 120 days, and then there's also year round. So what we were trying to do is really limit the applicability of the text change for year-round sales to very limited circumstances because of concerns about unintended consequences in the town of Matthews. So basically, we've left the text so that you can have sale of goods from semi-truck trailers without a cab, temporary greenhouses or tents, not to exceed 120 days, but only ancillary to a permanent retail hardware or home improvement store within the B1 SCD district, notwithstanding that foregoing statement about the 120-day limitation. We would be, with this text amendment, allowed to, on a year-round basis, sell only agricultural, garden, and landscaping supplies and materials from semi-truck trailers without a cap, with additional conditions based, again, on the concerns that were mentioned at the public hearing as well as the planning board in terms of locations where the payment transactions could take place, and then the limitation on the number of cabs or semi-truck trailers that could be used for year-round storage. Heard some concerns about whether this would be limiting in terms of future technologies with Square technologies with maybe a tablet. We really added this limitation based on the recommendation of planning board, and we're really open to whatever this board feels comfortable with in terms of point of sale and where that can be located. That was really just based on that comment from planning board. And so basically, as you can see, what we've tried to do is narrow this as much as possible. If you could go to the next slide. This kind of gives you an overview of what will be impacted by this text change. Again, it will only impact the B1 SCD district, which is a district for shopping centers and retail stores over 100,000 square feet. It will only apply to hardware or home improvement stores within the B1 SCD district, and it will only permit year-round sale of agricultural, garden, and landscaping supplies and materials. So, no sale of washer and dryers or dishwashers or things of that nature out of the semi-truck trailers. So we have tried to narrowly tailor this text amendment for only a handful of uses. And we hope we've done as much as we could to address the concerns and questions of both the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board. And we respectfully ask that you approve this text amendment. We're here to answer any questions you may have or provide any more clarification you may have.
All right. Are there any questions for Ms. Good? Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. It's a little bit confusing between the planning board's memo and the text amendment, but I want to state the following. Why not only the side and rear? Who wants it in the front? I believe the planning board says you can use the front, but why not the side and rear only? The current text refers to that. I make a recommendation that it stay that way. We can debate the time frame, but not necessarily the location. I feel that 2 trailers should be enough, not 3. And I visited the Lowe's site and the Home Depot site, and the Lowe's site is far superior in design and quality, and the Home Depot site, in my opinion, is in need of repairs and maintenance first. It's rusty. It's not pretty at all.
Would the applicant care to comment?
Just one comment on the location. The text, just to clarify, it does put a limit that the year-round sale could only be at the side and rear. So that is maintained. I think the additional thing that we added was it could not be located in a required yard abutting a public right-of-way. So there was no change to the location. We retained that location. In terms of comparing the Lowe's site to the Home Depot site, we just, it's different sites with different constraints in terms of the size of the property, the existing structure. This is an older store than the Lowe's store is. And then we also have some topography limitations that prevent us from being able to do the same setup as the Lowe's store, which I could get into more detail if that's the pleasure of the board.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Urban.
Do we have a site plan? Because I'm wondering if the same fire truck access issue is at hand. If for some reason you got those trailers there, can a fire truck get around?
Yes, Commissioner Urban. And if we can put back up my presentation. I did have a snippet of the most recent site plan that you just approved back in September.
Mr. Urban, can I point out that this is not site-specific text?
I know it's not site-specific, Charlie, but I get you.
Site plan.
Yeah, this being a text amendment sort of makes it all that more difficult. We've run into this before, and I guess to Jeff's point, it does say side and rear, and it doesn't say abutting public right of way. So that is important from that aspect of it. Okay.
I can just tell you the case law was very much opposed to dealing with site-specific issues on a text amendment.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
There is also a link in the text amendment that it can't be in a required drive aisle as well, Commissioner Urban.
Were we going to call up the site plan?
Well, being a text amendment, it doesn't matter. We shouldn't be looking at the site plan. I'll agree with that.
Okay. Are there any other comments or motions? Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
I just want to clarify, when I was talking about the point of sale, it wasn't necessarily to approve or deny, but it's definitely something we need to consider if curbside retail is going to expand. Somebody purchases Pine Straw online and wants to drive up and pick it up. They aren't going to want to get out of their car and go into a register. And so when we work through this, we need to keep that in mind.
Can we call up the text amendment verbiage again? And I'd like to ask Mayor Pro Tem Garner or anybody else if there's a portion of that verbiage that we can tweak that would address your concern.
Well, I think this is the time to do it. And it goes back to my comment about no fixed POS terminal or station, that you could amend, that you could rework the text amendment to allow mobile handheld only devices for purposes of sales to be used. And that way there's no physical stand or feature sitting out there with an extension cord running out to a cash register.
So it would be item 3 in the text amendment. Payment transactions must be conducted at the store register, not at the semi-truck trailer that there's some concern about.
Or by way of mobile handheld device, something that is literally mobile and does not impinge upon a fixed POS.
But does that, I guess my question to the planning board was, does that still capture what their intent was with that limitation?
Mr. Foster, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily speak for the entire planning board, but my personal opinion is, yeah, I think that would address it. Because what I was thinking when we were talking about this is not to have, like a full-blown cash wrap, cash register, cables, things like that out there. But if we did something like we do with, like even Chick-fil-A does now, or anybody using a Square does now, that doesn't infringe on any space whatsoever.
So again, we need to modify this verbiage in some manner. Does somebody want to take a stab at it?
Delete III and IV/3.
We have a consensus from the board that we don't want to allow 3 trailers. Anybody want to speak to that?
I don't have a problem with just being 2, like Jeff has indicated.
Anybody else?
I think they showed on their site plan or the layout at one point that 3 wasn't any more intrusive than 2. So I feel comfortable with 3. And it keeps them competitive with Lowe's, especially as Lowe's has come to us with their own expansion.
Anyone else want to speak to this? 2 or 3 trailers?
I'm good with 3. That's chances are they won't have 3 at one time. They'll have probably 2, but if they needed to during the season, that would be.
Okay. Commissioner Urban, you had a comment?
Yeah, let me put my cards on the table. I was not in favor of this text amendment because, again, it's a text amendment. JCPenney's could move out. Jay and I talked about that. I know he came back to the planning board, put the right-of-way piece in. I'm fine with the 3 trailers, but my concern is, again, still the side. So I'd like to see what thoughts are from maybe Laura or other commissioners about if you put it on the side, you have to screen it. I don't care how, whether it's screened via landscaping or screened via a fence or a gate, it's screened because you just never know where that visibly might be taken from. If it's the rear, is fine for me. So I'm just putting out the sort of things that I see that could be emblematic of a blanket text amendment here affecting different locations.
But the adjacent property is power lines. Is that correct? From what I remember, is that correct?
This would be to any site.
That's any site. Just imagine JCPenney's going out of business. They build on the side and it's a feed and tax store. It's facing 74, so it's exempt. But think of another property at Sycamore Commons that puts trailers along the side of the building and isn't facing a public right of way, but it's facing the shopping center or whatever. Do you want to really see that as well? I'm not saying close the whole thing, but can you do something to obscure rear facing trailers? So, no, I'm sorry, not rear, the side facing trailers. Does that make sense?
If we included that stipulation, could Home Depot come back to us and ask for an exemption from that?
No. I guess it'd be a condition of their actual rezoning. That's a J Camp question.
And if I could speak briefly, I understand the town attorney that we are not supposed to be looking at individual sites. This is Home Depot's site. We looked at the ability to screen on that side where we're allowed to do it. It's not feasible for us, so we would not be able to add that as part of the text change. I know that there has been some prior discussion about whether this board would entertain less than year-round, something between 120 days, but less than year-round without screening. That would certainly be our preference. Obviously, we need this year-round, but we will take anything more. I think 180 days had been thrown out. But again, screening is something that would essentially put us in a worse position than before we started with this text amendment.
I mentioned 180 last time we spoke.
Yeah. 180 is good with the strike of 3 and 4.
Is Lowe's a year round?
Yeah, but it's a lot nicer layout with 2 trailers.
It's enclosed too.
It's enclosed.
It doesn't apply here.
Couple comments. First of all, does a portion of this text amendment says that it can't abut a public right of way, correct?
Right.
Right.
So what is the concern if it's not on a public right of way? It's going to be off to the side, not abutting a public right of way. Secondly, I think we're punishing the residents of Matthews when we say you can only sell this a limited time when there's a need and a desire for these products year round. As one that uses a lot of these products, I can attest to that. Pine straw, pine nuggets, mulch, etc. So I don't see any. I don't think it's good for our citizens to prevent them from selling year round. Then they have to drive farther away to get product that they want. So
Independence Point Parkway is going to be a through street.
My understanding is that based on this text amendment, again, not to look at site specifics, but there's been a provision added that this cannot be in a required yard abutting a public road. So if at the specific site as applied by this text amendment, if that Independence Point Boulevard was extended, the trailers would not be able to be placed there at this location. I believe that was the point that planning had actually asked for that to be added, and I will defer to Darren on that point, but that was added to the text.
And then one note about that too, just to pull up another, or just talk about another site in town. For example, on the Lowe's site where they're planning on doing that building addition right now, that would be on the side of the building, but it abuts up against Independence Point Parkway, or not Independence Point Parkway, but Independence Boulevard. So in that area, if this were approved, no semi-trailers could be put in that area.
Commissioner Urban.
I guess my question to Jay and Darren, looking at the B1 SCD, is there a shopping center situation where you have inline retailers, a gap, inline retailers, someone could put trailers in that slot on the side of a building, and it would be facing not necessarily public right of way, but it would be facing the shopping center or some other view corridor that was unintended?
Probably yes. If you look at Windsor Square and the layout there, there's probably a lot of opportunities. I think what you're kind of getting at is maybe these tractor trailers are screened if they're within 100 feet of public view. Because is it really I don't know if it's detrimental to the shopping experience if someone sees one or two of these at a big box retail development. Does that make sense? But I think from the public street, the town's worried about aesthetics. If it's within X number of feet, maybe it does need to be screened. Maybe there's 100-foot buffer or something. And I'm not trying to rewrite this at the 11th hour. I'm just trying to get to. And by the way, and to your point, John, JCPenney closed. They're closing. They announced that this weekend, so that is another.
Or is it a matter of that on the side, the trailers have to be set back 20 feet? Some level, because come on now, if they're up on the side, up to the front, you're going to see them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bottom line. If they're pushed back, that's fine.
The street side yard really that allayed our concerns. If you think of the former PetSmart at Northeast and Windsor Square Drive, there's a building that sits pretty close to the road. I think it's an outdoor living establishment. There's situations like that where we were really concerned with the placement of the semi-trailers.
What's your thought, Jeff? Because you have the same concerns I do.
I would be willing to go to 180 days with 2 trailers max. I like Renee's point about the square or remote purchases. I think Harris Teeter and Food Lion sell plants and pumpkins.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's outside for safety, it could be a solution towards the future. So I like Renee's point.
From my perspective, I'm in favor of the text amendment as written, other than making the adjustment to accommodate the sales that Renee mentioned. I think year-round is reasonable. I think 3 trailers is reasonable. I don't really have a problem with any of it.
Larry had his hand raised.
Sorry, who has their hand raised?
Larry had his hand raised.
Commissioner Whitley.
No,
No?
what you just said is what I was going to say.
Commissioner McCool, did you raise your hand or were you scratching your face?
I struck my face, but I might as well say something. I agree with you, John. Mayor Higdon, I think we're kind of beating this a little too hard. I think we're getting away from. I don't know. I like the way the text amendment is written. Renee makes a good point about the squares and stuff. We're moving to a future where if big box retailers want to still do brick and mortar, they're gonna have to move to that. So I concur with Renee and John.
Commissioner Urban.
Mr. Mayor, would you be opposed, at least on the side, we set those trailers back a little bit? Because frankly, we're sitting here today and it's going to happen. It is going to be an unintended consequence and we're going to get the phone calls. I can't believe you let those trailers sit where they're at. So I think if anything, pushing them back 20 feet from the face of the front of a building will eliminate that initial impact. And I could support this thing. Although, town's always been supportive of a higher aesthetic standard. I'm willing to kind of go that way if we can push those trailers back from the front facade on the side.
Yeah, I could make that compromise. Commissioner Miller?
I think Lowe's is right even with the face.
But Lowe's is an enclosed structure.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so so because it's enclosed, that would be okay?
Yeah, if they would enclose it as part of the text amendment, I had no problem with it. But
okay,
yeah, but I'm just trying to mitigate. I'm trying to find a compromise here. I really like Home Depot. I want them to be here. They could put a gate up in front, but we're talking text amendment, so I'm trying to craft a text amendment.
Your concerns are well noted, Commissioner Urban. I could go along with that. Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Would that negate the ability to have 3 trailers on that at Home Depot?
Can't worry about it. It's text amendment.
Well, I mean, we have to worry about it on some level, right? Even if
you're right. You're right. You can, but to Charlie's point, is we have to think in an overarching 30,000-foot level.
I am, and so maybe I should rephrase that. If we require there's a 20-foot setback, then what does that do to the business and their ability to keep, the maximum storage or the intention here, right, is to minimize moving product off the truck to the store. So are we harming businesses by requiring a 20-foot setback? Or are we, what are those consequences?
Big box stores are 100 to 200 feet deep. They shouldn't have a problem at all.
My only concern is let's do what, if Lowe's do 3 and they're even, let's do the same thing. We got to be fair, and those are the 2 biggest stores we have there. So if it's even, and that's what Jeff said, I know it is because I shopped there. And with the rendering of what we saw, let's do 3 year round and text amendment what Renee wanted, and let's move forward with that.
Any further comment or motions? I think.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mayor Higdon. I was just wondering, I'm trying to clarify the 20-foot setback that's been requested. Is that from the front of the store or?
Front.
Front, okay.
From the front face.
All right.
So just out of curiosity, Ms. Good, can Home Depot accommodate that and still have 3 trailers?
Again, not to speak to specifics, but our specific site plan that's been approved has them on the side of the store, not in the front of the store. Would that mean along the side that they have to be further set back 20 feet from
Yes, I think, because that's what your intention is, right, Commissioner Urban?
From the front plane of the building, the setback on the side comes back 20 feet.
All right. I would have to confirm with my team on that.
Is that what Lowe's does?
Larry, Lowe's is a fully enclosed garden trailer situation. They spent the time and the effort and the money to do it to avoid this conversation. And they are out at the front, but they're according to, Jeff has seen it, it's a decorative solution. What we're talking about is if you went to Lowe's today and didn't see any gate or fence, you see trailers right there, right in line with the front face of the facade of the store.
Yeah, but that what she's saying is Lowe's is a newer store than Home Depot, and maybe Lowe's got it right when they developed barriers. It seems like you're trying to punish Home Depot and adding a lot of extra restrictions.
No, Lowe's is going out of the way to do, in their mind, a more aesthetically pleasing solution. I'm not trying to punish Home Depot whatsoever.
I just don't think we need to add a whole lot. We done been on this thing 3 or 4 times. We know what they asked for. They trying to be good and giving us what we asked for. It seems like we keep asking more and more. Year round is not bad with what the season we're doing now. 3 trailers is not bad if that's what the other one's doing. And if even we did move it to the side and got it there, I'm good with where we go with the text amendment of what Renee was adding to that.
And that's fine. We take a vote and we
Is that a motion, Commissioner Whitley?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, we need to clarify the verbiage about what Mayor Pro Tem Garner said.
I'm not quite sure, but I know it was with the pad and being able to go out to the truck and take a bill there. And I think that's what she was.
You want to take a swipe at that, Mayor Pro Tem Garner, for that particular portion of the text amendment?
Can you pull it back
It was
up?
the 3 ayes, which totally outlawed the point of sale. You'd say point of sale not allowed other than handheld mobile devices or something like that.
Can Jay pull it back up so I can't see it.
So it's item the 3 there. Payment transactions must be conducted at the store register, not at the semi-truck trailer, and maybe you say with the exception of whatever handheld. I don't know what the proper terminology is.
I mean, I guess I would say something to the effect of no permanent registers may be at the trailers, or or outside of the store boundaries.
So you would strike 3 and replace it with no permanent store registers may be located in the vicinity or at the semi-truck trailer or something like that?
Yeah, something to that effect, because who knows what the technology will be in next year. I mean, with how quickly it changes. So the intent was not to have an additional register at the trailers.
Jay Camp, do you have any suggested verbiage for what we're trying to craft here?
Yeah, I'm putting a sentence together. Let me give me just a moment.
I figured you probably were.
I think you could begin, if you want to retain some aspect of this, you could begin with payment transactions must be conducted at the store register or via mobile payment at the semi-truck trailer, something of that nature.
I think mobile payment, though, sounds like you're paying from Apple Pay or from your phone, Venmo, right?
I just say electronic tablet.
Or electronic point of sale.
I mean, mobile point of sale would be accurate. I think a mobile point of sale. I wouldn't leave it at mobile.
Okay.
All right, Jay, repeat that one more time so everybody can hear it in language.
I'm going to write it down before we forget it, even if it's simple. Payment transactions must be conducted at the store register or via mobile point of sale at the semi-truck trailer.
I would change via to by.
Or by.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Whitley, is that your motion?
Yes, sir, it is.
Do we have a second?
No, whoa, Mayor. You need to have the full motion with consistency and reasonableness included.
And we want to make sure the applicant is agreeable to the language, exact language, before we vote on it.
Well, you may want to have their input, but at the same time, this is not conditional zoning, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
Okay, Commissioner Whitley, we'll go back to you. Reasonable and consistent statement.
Yeah, put that up on the board for me, Jay. So I can get it exactly right. All right. All right. I'd like to make a motion that application 2020-7119 be approved. It has been found to be consistent with the Matthews land use as following: consistent, the zoning text amendment is consistent, the Matthews land use planning as supported in environmental variable and existing business and retail center.
Reasonable.
It's a zoning text. It's also reasonable as it provide benefit to surrounding community, increase and select retail available year round.
And it would be the text amendment as amended or as written this evening.
And as the text amendment be amended for this evening.
Do we have a second to Commissioner Whitley's motion?
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Garner. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban.
No.
Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
No.
I vote yes, so that passes 5-2 with Commissioner Urban and Commissioner Miller voting no. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 11. Again, I apologize for my video, but my internet is extremely unstable for some reason. And it was just upgraded, but it's terrible tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve consent agenda A through J.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Whitley to approve consent agenda items 11A through J, second by Commissioner Bland. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. I raised my hand. Did you see me?
Yeah.
Go on to item 12, unfinished business. Consider resolution calling for assessment role and public hearing for Streamside Special Assessment. Charlie.
Mayor, this is on this evening. The Public Works Department has completed all of the work to be done on the street improvements. All the costs are known. And so this resolution tonight confirms the cost and directs the clerk to prepare a notice to the public through publication and also of the preparation of the assessment roll. She's to prepare that and give notice to all the adjoining property owners. And then you're calling for a public hearing to be held at the second meeting in January for anybody who wishes to be heard on this cost fact finding. There will be subsequent resolutions where the assessment roll is absolutely adopted, but this directs her to prepare it and to put out notice of such.
And Charlie, could you just to review for all of us again, explain how this assessment came to be and what the purpose of it is?
The streets were in terrible shape. The original developer had defaulted. There is a bond being held by Mecklenburg County on this property, on this subdivision. The residents came to the town through a petition and asked that the town improve the streets, bring it up to the town standards, to take over the streets, and that they'd be willing to be assessed for the cost of this. The town initially determined that 21% of this was benefiting the town through connectivity with other streets, but that their particular streets that these people were adjacent to, that their cost would be 79%. The work done was over 99,000 or 98,000, almost 99,000. You subtract the bond that the county is holding, and that brought the cost down. And so when you divide it by 16 property owners, it came out to be like $2,900 per lot to be assessed. but it
Thank
that was
you.
created by a petition of the residents.
That's a very good explanation, and I believe this came up under our last administration, correct? Didn't this come up?
That's right.
So this comes up from time to time. I think there's been a couple of them since I've been an elected official. One thing that's clear that I just want to bring to everybody's attention is we're kind of in this pickle because the legislature lowered the bond amounts, and so the bonds aren't enough to cover the work when an unscrupulous developer just goes to the beach and lets it hang for the people that are living in the development. In this case, it's costing them about $3,000 a piece. So it's very unfortunate. Something maybe we should take back up in our legislative agenda to get these bonds more representative of what's actually required to complete streets, etc. In any event, we need a we need a motion and a vote on this.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Urban.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to adopt the attached resolution declaring costs and ordering preparation of preliminary assessment roll. We'll be setting the time at 7 p.m. on January 25th, 2021 at Town Hall. For the public hearing on preliminary assessment roll regarding improvements to the streets within stream side of Matthews subdivision.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Commissioner Urban, a second by Commissioner Bland. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 13A, new business. Employee and town board compensation. Mr. Blodgett.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I know Jay's pulling this memo up. Okay, during this fiscal year, we're in fiscal year 21. We had a lot of discussion about raises during the budget process, which typically lasts from April to June. In hindsight, I think the board acted properly because the unknown impact of COVID-19, and we did not provide raises to our employees. I know that's painful, but given the circumstances at the time, we felt like that was the right thing to do. However, what we did do was set aside about $174,000 for raises to go into effect January 1st, 2021, provided the revenues supported it. And at the last board meeting, we heard an update from Assistant Town Manager Becky Hawk. Our revenues are meeting or exceeding our budget amounts. And so we're in good shape there. The other thing to remember is that in 2018, when we passed the current pay classification plan, the intention was for the town of Matthews to be at the 60% level of the market. What's happened, while we have given kind of what I'd call minimal raises, we have not given any cost of living raises. Well, last year we did give a 1%, but not enough to stay up to the 60%. And we recently looked at it, we're actually below 50%. So what kind of just on a percent basis, and if you took Charlotte out, which is really an outlier, we are 4.33%, the average of the towns that we surveyed, and there they are: Concord, Cornelius, Davidson, Harrisburg, Huntersville, Mint Hill, Monroe, Mooresville, and Stallings. So we have kind of two recommendations that will take two separate actions. So one of the things we're recommending is to do an across-the-board market adjustment of 3% for all of our employees, really as a result of their hard work this past year, this pandemic year. And one of the things that it'll do, it'll help with retaining our existing employees. We'd make this effective January 1st, 2021. And in order to get this 3%, you would have to be at least meeting expectations in your last review. So that's one action we're asking the board to do. The second action is that we'll also want the board to increase the pay scale, which there's an attachment, 3%, up 3%. So everything moves up 3%. Now, we want you guys, everybody, the board, to know this will not increase raises. We're not going to give another 3%. Still, the 3% raise is in place. However, one of the things it'll do is make us more competitive when we're hiring new employees. And the best example is the police department. We surveyed 16 departments, and our entry level salary for police officers, we had 16 departments ahead of us, and only 2 of them were behind us, and that was Pineville and Salisbury. This 3% will help us move up to about the midpoint or close to the midpoint. This is not a long-term solution, but this will keep us competitive for the next 6 months, I guess I would say. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Hazen, I've got a quick question. The sister cities, so to speak, that you looked at, those are the exact same ones that were studied in 2018?
Not 100% exact. We were trying to pull this together rather quickly. I'm going to guess. My guess is about an 80% match. There's about an 80% match. That's my guess.
Do you know which towns were included that weren't done before?
Is Becky Hawk on the call?
She is.
Yeah, I know as an example, Rock Hill was part of the 2018 study, but HR Director Tanya McGovern was using the league's recent salary survey for this report. And so that was only going to be North Carolina localities. So as an example, Rock Hill is one that's missing. I can pull up the others really quick if you're interested.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're close, approximating apples and apples.
And I feel like we are, Mayor. Yes.
Okay, that being the case, then, Becky, I've, just some data points there, but I want to remind the board then that, we're not at 60%. We're not even at 50%. We've fallen. It's really a little disheartening when we just had this conversation and moved everybody up to 60%, and now have fallen below 50% this quickly. And Hazen, you and I and Becky spoke about this, and we think that a lot of nearby towns followed our lead and did the same thing we did right after we did it, and so just pushed all the salaries up.
Yes, sir. That's my guess.
And to be totally clear, then the second portion, the other 3%, would only really affect, I guess, one, if somebody was at the very bottom of the pay grade, which would be approximating a very new hire, or somebody that was being hired totally new that hadn't been hired yet.
Correct.
So the overwhelming majority of our employees would be getting the 3% adjustment and not more than that.
Correct.
Are there any questions? Wow, not seeing any questions. Okay, are there any motions? We're going to need 2 separate votes here for items 13A1 and 13A2.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bland.
I'll make a motion that we approve the town manager's recommendation with respect to the 3% pay raise. That would be for our current employees. That'd be my first motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Bland, a second from Commissioner Whitley. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. You have a second motion, Commissioner Bland?
Yes, I would make a motion that we approve the manager's recommendation with respect to bumping up 3% on new hires as outlined in his memo. And that would be my second motion.
And I'll second that as well, too.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Bland, a second from Commissioner Whitley. Roll call vote. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously also. So Hazen and Becky, I hope you will let our employees know that the town board unanimously voted in these very difficult times to give them this raise, and we're very appreciative of everything that they do for us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, Mayor and Commissioners. I know the staff does.
Okay, we'll move on to item 13B, consider adding elected officials to the state employee health plan. Again, Hazen, this is for you.
Yes, sir. So several years back, it's probably more than several now, but we did get special legislation. Town of Matthews was added to the state employees health insurance program. That there were 700 belly buttons, as they say, in that program, and it's such a wide, big pool. We have very little, well, relatively small increases because you know that whatever that's wide group helps balance out the fringes. One of the things North Carolina League of Municipalities does each year is they do a salary and benefits study. And we recently looked at their latest study, and all of the 7 cities over 100,000 responded. Each of those cities offer their elected officials health insurance. And then we also looked at the 25 to 100,000 group, and of the 10 responding cities, 8 of the 10 offered their health insurance to their elected officials. One of the things we did do, we wanted to make sure we were on solid legal ground because the board is not full-time employees, as an example. But Mac McCarley, the attorney we used for our HR, was comfortable that the board elected officials could be added to the employee health insurance program. So what we're proposing is to add the mayor and the Board of Commissioners to the list of eligible town employees on our healthcare program. At this time, we're not proposing that the town make a contribution like we do for employees, right? Elected officials, if they chose, could use their annual salaries to pay for related health insurance for either themselves or their dependents. So at this point, there's no contribution from the town for this benefit. So there's no financial impact, and the insurance would be paid at 100%, would be paid 100% by the elected official. So we're recommending approving this new program.
Yeah, when we discuss this at our agenda review, I want to make absolutely clear that everyone understands this is at no cost whatsoever, as Hazen said, to the town. This would be totally incumbent on the elected officials to pay their own way. It just gives us access to the insurance that other employees have that are in this program. So no cost to the town. I think there's certainly a lot of precedent for it, so I'm in favor of this. I would entertain a motion. Mr. Bland.
I'll be glad to make a motion. I think that this makes a whole lot of sense, for a lot of different reasons, but my motion would be that the town provide health insurance benefit to elected officials, but with the understanding that the elected official either pays for it out of their payment or salary that they're receiving as part-time employees, or they have to stroke a check for the balance. That just gives them the opportunity to participate in the insurance pool.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bland, a second from Commissioner Whitley. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Urban.
Purely voluntarily, right? I mean, the elected official can decide, all right, so it's not going to drag anybody into this or anything of that nature.
Good point. That's correct. It's totally voluntary. If you have other insurance or don't wish to participate, there's no obligation to do so.
I like my doctor. I want to keep them. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we call the vote? All right, I will call the vote. Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Sure.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item 13C, consider Central Lina Regional Council delegate and alternate appointments. Hazen, I have you as the person that's going to do this, but I can speak to it if you wish. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm not sure who I don't know who the board wanted to appoint. So you can speak to it.
So the Central Lina Regional Council delegation meets, I believe, quarterly, and Commissioner Dement was our primary appointee to that. And we never replaced her. And I'm not sure they've had a whole lot of meetings, if any, due to COVID. But I have Commissioner Miller was our alternate. And my recommendation is that we appoint Ken McCool as the primary person and leave Jeff, maybe a little begrudgingly, because I think he's done this for half his life or something, but leave him as the alternate because perhaps he could mentor Ken and be available in case Ken's not available. So that would be my recommendation, unless if there's others that particularly want to be considered for appointment, please raise your hand now. That's fine. We can talk about it.
I'll second that motion if it was one with
Sure.
a recommendation. I did it for 11 or 12 years and I enjoyed it. It's a very professional group, but I think that the baton could be passed well to Ken unless someone else wants it. And I'll be a backup.
Okay, we have a motion, I guess, from myself and a second from Commissioner Miller. I think that's the first motion I've made as mayor, actually. I didn't know I made a motion until Commissioner Miller told me I did, but thank you. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Certainly.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Yeah, Commissioner McCool votes. I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
I look forward to serving on it, and hopefully I'll talk to Jeff and he can mentor me.
Yeah.
Please find out when their next meeting is and what's going on with that, because they've been a little radio silent, I think, for a while.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll move on to item 14, the mayor's report. I have a couple items. The first one is a little sad, and I'd like to mention that a real shining star in our community has passed on, and that's Miss Alice Russell. And many of you on the board knew her. She was very active in the women's club. See her all over town. She always made me laugh. A very, very funny lady. She was up in age and I believe died of some complications from heart congestion. But just a really lovely person. Again, always for me, just always very funny. I always laughed when I was in her presence. I made that comment today on social media. She would always she was the at the Victorian Tea. She was always my server. And the last time that I saw her, she pinched my cheek. Just a very funny lady, and also made a lot of fun comments at the women's club meetings when I have given talks there. So just a lovely person, and we're really sorry to see her go. I think there's a few other people on the town board that would like to say a few comments about Alice. We'll start with Commissioner McCool.
Yeah, Alice was a wonderful lady. I've known her since I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. She's actually one of the people who first got me interested in the Matthews history and what we are as a town. You know, she spent most of her life here. I spoke with her fairly often, and you know, she always sent me a Christmas card, birthday card. We were very close, and she was a shining star. So we need to be sure to remember her, and if in the future do something to make sure her legacy stays on, because she was a prominent member of our community, and she was well loved.
Anyone else like to?
Mayor, didn't she serve us at the tea last Christmas?
She did. She did.
And she kept us filled with tea that night. And, you know, certainly I think all of us, you know, she's just a wonderful, wonderful person. Very
sweet
caring. And, you know, the town has lost a good citizen.
All right. So we will,
Mayor,
Sure.
if I could have a comment about Alex Russell.
Sure.
She used to attend very frequently, the board meetings in the late 70s and during the 80s. Was a very active civic leader and very influential in the community. And so for 40 some years, I've known her. And obviously in the recent years, I haven't seen her very often since she would quit coming to the Matthews board meetings. But she was a lovely lady, but a real instrumental civic leader in this community. And she's going to be a real loss to the Matthews community.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I like Commissioner McCool's idea of maybe us thinking some way to commemorate her life in some meaningful way, somewhere in one of our parks or one of our public places, because she was a very outstanding citizen for sure, and a good friend of the town, and longtime resident. The other thing I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
You know, I don't have much to add to the conversation. I can't really remember my life without Alice in it. But to say that she was an inspiration as a strong, independent woman would be an understatement. And she had a lot of impact on me in my life.
Thank you. It's been a rough week and a rough year. I also heard this week, I believe from you, Renee, that former Commissioner Martha Kraus lost her son-in-law as well this past week. So it's been a tough week here in Matthews for sure. We'll be glad when 2021 comes along. On a more happy note, so you might want to reach out to the Krauses and wish them condolences. On a happier note, not really a happier note, actually. The Matthews Exxon closed, and happy in that I did a mayoral proclamation in recognition of the Matthews Exxon, and Harry Williams and Scott Chandler and the whole crew over there took care of many, many people. I know Pastor Whitley, he took care of your church vehicles. He took care of a lot of the vehicles when I worked at Combraco. He took care of some of my vehicles.
That's correct.
One of the last places that you could go anywhere and have somebody, those of us that are a little older, Ken probably doesn't remember this, but when you went to buy gas, they would actually come pump the gas and wipe your windshield and check your oil. And they still did that sort of thing at Matthews Exxon in 2020. But they have decided, Mr. Williams has decided to retire. It'll be interesting to see what becomes of that piece of property. It's been suggested that the town consider purchasing it and adding it to Stumptown Park, but it would be very, very expensive. I believe that, and the piece that has Ming Fu sold recently for like 1.4 million. So it's expensive. It's also Jay reminded me, it's also a brownfield site. But anyway, we want to remember Exxon for all the wonderful personal touches they had over 50 years that they were there. And so with the help of Mayor Pro Tem Garner, because I was unavailable the morning that they had a parade, Mayor Pro Tem Garner went and delivered this proclamation to them, and they were very happy to get it. I'll read it very quickly. Whereas Matthews Exxon has been a staple of downtown Matthews for decades, and whereas Matthews Exxon is not just a place of business, but a source of honest service, expertise, and trust for its customers, and whereas the business has been a highly respected shop to multiple generations of the greater Matthews community with a reputation for high quality, honest work. And whereas Matthews Exxon has survived challenges brought on by economic downturns, historic hurricanes, and a continually changing business environment while providing exemplary service to its customers. And whereas the business could not have accomplished any of this without its world-class employees and their shared dedication to excellence under the guidance of Harry Williams and Scott Chandler, who together provided a workplace in which coworkers became family. And whereas Matthews Exxon will be closing soon, and they've closed now, but their dedication and commitment to the community will never be forgotten. Now therefore, I, Mayor John F. Higdon, do hereby honor and recognize Matthews Exxon for its success and commitment to the community, and wish good luck and happy retirement to Harry Williams, Scott Chandler, and all those associated with the business, and witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the town of Matthews to be affixed this 5th day of December 2020. And again, they were very happy to get this. And also, like, I believe, Lori, were you the author of this proclamation? Sorry, these
Yes,
weren't
sir.
my fine words. These were crafted by somebody a little more skilled at the art than me and that thing, but that sort of thing. But we thank Lori for that. And that's really all I have for the mayor's report. We'll move on then to the attorney's report. Charlie?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Town manager's report?
Sorry, I do have one thing. So we sent an email out about, right now we have a requirement that fences in designated front yards can't be over 4 feet. And I think in a typical residential street, that makes a lot of sense. It's can be like a big barrier and doesn't make a residential street welcome. And I think that's a pretty common standard across the country. However, there may be other exceptions on very busy streets or four-lane streets or something like that. We don't know, but I did want to kind of poll the board to see if there was any interest in us investigating this issue to see if in certain situations, a 4-foot fence may be too low, given the nature of the street.
Commissioner Miller?
I would start by asking how tall is the brick wall on 51 or Sardis Road going towards Charlotte?
4 feet.
Made the exact same comment, Commissioner Miller, because seems to me that's probably at least 6 feet. Looks like it, right?
Or 5, I don't know.
Pretty tall.
It looked like 4, but I haven't gone over there.
Let's clarify. You're talking about the wall, brick wall on 51 close to the intersection of Sardis Road.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I don't think that's 6 feet.
No. We're talking apples and oranges.
Okay.
That probably is 4 feet. That probably is 4 feet. Although even that does look taller. The one that has the birds and stuff hanging at the top of it?
Benton Woods.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a rear yard. Yes, that's a rear yard.
So that probably is taller than 4 feet. Do you know, Jay?
Yeah, that's 6 feet. Yeah.
Well, isn't it the opposite as far as front and rear on this property in question?
That's exactly the issue. It's a rear lot is rear property line is one thing, front property line is a different one. So I saw Commissioner Garner nodding her head up and down that is something she would like us to investigate, see if there's any unintended consequences, to see what other municipalities do regarding this.
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to be prepared for, especially as the landscape of 51 changes.
Yeah, to be clear, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Miller, but I was referring in Charlotte as you drive down Sardis Road towards South Park. All of those developments where they tore down 3 houses and built 10 McMansions have formidably high brick edifices facing that you can't see the yard, you can't see the house, you can't see the first floor. They're very tall. But that, of course, that's in Charlotte. I do think maybe we should consider this because we talk about the particular address in question. I mean, that's right on the corner of basically 2 highways.
Right.
Maybe we could make a special dispensation for that situation. That's not like, in Ashley Creek, that's along 2 major thoroughfares where cars are going 45, 50 miles an hour in your front yard.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to look at it.
So yeah, can we add that to maybe a future meeting as a discussion point and maybe get some more? And what's important for me, Hazen, you and I and Jay, we've talked about it, is are there, again, any unintended consequences that this would, could we craft something that didn't have unintended consequences?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Bland, second from who? Who seconded it? Miller? Commissioner Miller? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley?
Here's wishing all of y'all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Stay safe. Help is on the way. The vaccine is coming. And hopefully we can get through this around April or May. Everybody be vaccinated. Merry Christmas. And yes, we can go.
Amen, Rev.
Thank you. Same to everyone. Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Yeah, and I vote yes as well. As the Reverend said quite well, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to everyone. And I'm sure we'll see each other around town or talk on the phone or Zoom or something in the very near future. But if we don't, have a great holiday and be safe. See y'all soon.
Happy holidays.